I'm sorry. You recall? The attorney, we're talking about the attorney, correct?
Yeah.
And
I
looking
think we're
forward
kinda.
to,
So you call me back to order.
yeah, we'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order.
Okay. Are we at the Station 56 project?
That's where I'm at on there.
Okay, let's discuss that. We've gotten some plans, we've got the plans already in place. We do have some associated costs with that, and it's, as I understand, it's less than $5,000.
Yeah.
It's $4,000 in change, I think.
Yeah, we've got a quote. I think the chief gave us a quote last meeting.
Yeah. It's like 42 something or whatever.
Yeah, it was less than 5,000. That was,
When the proposal to use the insurance money or something?
yeah, that's what, Chris had a question about how we were gonna pay for that. Andy talked about some air pack money or something.
There was $5,000 that was the insurance out of that tornado that went through there.
Right.
There was $5,000 still remaining out of that, and that's what we were talking
Okay,
about.
that's what I thought,
5,000 and doing this project because it was 4,200 or whatever.
And change, yeah.
4540. That's what it says here on the quote. G&M Construction.
Yeah.
So have we approved that?
We want to discuss that tonight, and we want to put it on the table for approval.
Okay, I thought we approved it last
I
time.
thought we did.
Did we approve it officially?
Yeah, I thought we approved it to go ahead and use that $5,000 out of that insurance money.
Okay, but we didn't approve moving forward, though, with the project.
I thought that was based on the township. I thought it was approved, you were wanting the township to,
I don't think
because,
if this is insurance money that's left over, I don't think we need to do that, do we? I mean,
Well, that's why we're.
this board can spend that money, can't they?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't think the township needs to get involved in
Well,
this.
how about if we just for the sake of legality, let's make a motion. We can go on the project contingent on the money that's left over for the insurance.
Okay,
Any motion on that?
I'll make a motion that we approve this proposal by G&M Construction to work on Station 56 in Atlanta. And it will be paid for out of the leftover insurance money from the tornado damage.
I'll second that motion.
Got a second, then carries forward as approval.
Okay, Chief, can you contact them and make sure that gets started or on their agenda on there?
Jeff, you mentioned last time when we were looking at the budget, or next budget, we possibly may be looking at when some of our vehicles will be paid off, looking at replacing.
Right.
You want to talk a little bit on that?
Jason and I talked a little bit about that today. He and Chief White, I think, are going to look at some stuff at FDIC this week, get some ideas, and get a rough idea on cost of two proposed new brush truck or grass truck and ambulance, correct? And any equipment they need to go with that. We were looking at, did you keep those numbers by chance? We were looking at what the township currently has on a, I think I found it in here.
like 15,000, 12,000, something like that, so.
The tax rate they currently have for two fire vehicles is $54,992 a year is what they pay for the two vehicles, and they have two tax rates, and we multiplied that times 5 years is what the cost is.
280,000.
$290,000. If we can keep those two vehicles in that price range, we can just transfer that over, and our citizens won't really notice any bump in the road, and we'll be able to keep that tax rate pretty much going. But that tax rate dies at the end of this year, I believe.
So it's not any additional tax that comes out, it's a continuous.
You have to reapply for it. It's a new tax rate, but it would continue on at the rate we're going now. We just need some rough ideas on costs, so when we go talk to Judy this year about pre-budget workshop, the budget workshop stuff, that we usually tell her at that time so she can put it in the system, and then we give her finalized numbers later on.
Now, how will that work? Isn't that tax rate right now under the township?
It's currently
right now,
under the township.
So will it? We
It'd
have
be
to
over the
apply
entire
for it?
territory.
Will apply for it as a territory?
Yeah.
And possibly maybe not get it?
I don't think it would be a problem because it's still a line item under the township's budget. It would just include all the territory instead of just the township and incorporated. Plus, next year, or this is the last year for the to pay off that emergency loan we had that the entire territory is paying on too. So our constituents are going to see a drop in their taxes to begin with because we're paying off that last installment of the emergency loan. I believe it's this year.
Yeah.
It was a 3-year deal of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
So there was a little drop.
Here, what, a year ago, the tanker fell off?
Yeah, January 1st of this year, the tanker fell off. So we lost one tax rate. The township had 3 tax rates just for vehicles. And we lost the tanker one because it got paid off in January, I believe.
Okay.
They're gonna see their taxes go. I mean, we're talking, like I said in the last meeting, it might be $3 to $5 on the property taxes. It's not a huge thing, you know, over 5 years. It's a small fractional tax rate, 0.004 or something like that.
We'll get prices.
Okay, good. All
Just
right.
get some rough ideas.
Next thing on your salary resolution, I got a note from Chris that we need to discuss salary resolutions. Is that prior to doing the budget?
I think they have to have a salary resolution every year of the max, and all what it is it's the maximum you're gonna pay people in different positions. Like you'd have the chief and assistant chief and every firefighter listed, and this would be the maximum that they would be paid. And if it comes in under that, you're fine, but it can't go over that.
So you can put that together for,
We can, or you can look at the budget, and it's already in the budget
I
right
think
there.
it is, we just need to put it on paper, and
okay,
that needs to be presented to the township board so they can include that in their minutes.
okay.
We had to do that for all the township officials, elected officials and stuff like that.
It's supposed to be approved right before January 1st, so we can start that year's salary and payroll out of it. And this was not included in ours this year.
Right. We're
So
behind on
we're
that.
running without a salary resolution for the department.
It's
That's what I
just,
was gonna say, so we need to have one in
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, we'll get something together for you.
Okay,
next.
all right, good.
Now, there are set salaries and stuff that it needs to specify the exact salary that is paid per position, and then the part-time or whatever is set.
I don't think you have to include part-time positions in that.
I think that'll be part-time. What I'll do is, I'll put something together, just so you know, the date, and this is for the cash flow ordinance for the fire board to approve. I'll list out each paid position, the chief, me, and the 6 full-time people. I'll put down their names, their rank, and what we've budgeted for their salary. I don't know if I need to put benefits, workman's comp, and
Benefits are
I'm not sure.
No, it's just a salary.
Straight salary.
yeah, straight salary, what they'll get in a paycheck.
Okay, cash flow for fire territory fund. And where is that and what is that about?
I don't know who's that
You
is,
put
what it is.
I mean, that's something that Chris,
I don't know, I mean, are we referring to, or is she referring to her thinking we're gonna be in the hole for salaries?
could be.
We talked about that too.
Yeah.
We should be getting a small draw the first week of May. This past pay, yeah. Here, I'll pass this around. This is how much we currently have in cash in the fire territory fund to pay salaries. Okay? We just made a payment this year, or this week was
$19,000.
$19,000. So we don't have enough to pay the next, in 2 weeks. But we probably are gonna get a draw from the state
May 1st, as
May
we did
1st.
last year.
like we did last year. Not our big draw, but they give you like a pre-draw, because some people pay their taxes early. But what we stated was, and the township brought this up, and we passed had an agreement that if the territory fell short, that the township would, we called it a loan the territory money to make sure that they had cash flow. But it would, and then when you got the draw, then the money would go back. Basically, it's like a loan type thing. But Jason, I don't think right now we're going to be short strictly because we're gonna get a draw.
You should get, don't hold me to this, you should get something around May 1st, first
It's
week of
also in
May.
here.
May
Um, Roughly around, I'm gonna say close to $80,000.
Last year it was 87,000, it's
Okay.
85% of what has already been collected.
Okay, so let's say it'd be somewhere in the mid to high 80s,
Okay.
maybe 90s, but the point being is even though what we paid in salaries, this last pay was a little over 19,000, there's still 17,000 some odd dollars,
318,
318 left in there, so let's say we don't get the draw until May 8th, we're only gonna be a couple thousand short that we would have to borrow. Now, okay, we'll finish that, and then I'll go to the FEMA stuff.
Okay, I think I may only have one last thing here.
Document approval for short, for change,
Yeah, talking a group of.
didn't we kinda do
change
that?
procedure. I think we kinda did it last time, didn't we?
Well, I thought we
I
did.
saw it come back up again, so I put it on there.
Document approval of sort for change in procedure pick. Isn't this general order, or was that?
Is that the one that was, because we're changing
Right,
the hours,
and I haven't followed that, I'm kinda in midstream on that, but you're changing the way you're paying them, but it's explained in this policy, I believe.
that's part of the written policy.
Is that gonna change anything, Jason, whenever the way the part-time guys and all their hours are changing? Is that what this is referring to here on this payroll change?
I'm sorry, John, I was looking at something else, so I totally missed that.
This document for approval for sort of changes in procedure payroll that's on this agenda, is that something to do with the part-time and the manner that their hours being changed, that the payroll
I don't know.
pay period's gotta change or something like that?
No, their pay period wouldn't change. I mean, it would just go, instead of them working so many hours every week, they could work a normal, like career firefighter shift. They would not get the benefits of it.
But now it's also documented, they
Yes.
agree to have these many hours they have to work, they have
And
to
they
sign,
sign, yes.
sign a document and all that sort
Yeah.
of stuff.
So I don't know if that's a change for Chris or not. I wouldn't see where it
Why
was.
don't you ask the chief when he gets back?
Okay.
Just give us an email on that and just send an email, let us know.
I think these two documents is what Chris was looking for.
The general order.
Yeah, the general order and this one that they have to sign, I think that kind of paints a picture to kind of clear things up.
Before we get into FEMA, John, is there something you want to talk about? Have been mentioned?
The only other thing I have that, is the five-member board procedure, where we're at.
Okay, in fact, we needed to have it in place by 1 June. The proposal was that the township would select one representative for the township. Doesn't have to be an elected official, it could be anybody that lives in the township. And the same thing for the fire territory board. In fact, it's preferred than not elected officials. So between Arcadia and Atlanta, we choose who we want to have on the board. Now, I'm going to abstain from that and have you pick somebody from that lives here in the territory.
Well, do we need to take that, do we need to get the resolutions and the ordinance to take to the boards and have them approved
That
like
needs-
we did the alternates before we do this and make sure that all
Yeah,
entities are
the,
we did, so we need an ordinance for the towns and a resolution for the township that is basically identical language agreeing on that, that's spelled out, and we need to take it
I
back to
think
our board.
Logston's waiting on us to give him direction on which way to head.
Okay.
Cause you guys got the rough draft from Logston with the changes, correct?
Yeah,
Have you shown that to your boards? I emailed that to all my board to have them look over it, cause we were gonna bring that up.
I haven't done that yet.
That has to be, we have to agree on that first before we can do the resolutions and the ordinances.
well, to me, I looked at that and I seen that, and to me, that's putting the cart before the horse, because those things really need to be addressed along with the other 30-some items that are, are an issue with.
Did Aaron go through all those already?
Not with me, I haven't heard anything, I haven't seen any minutes from that meeting you guys had.
I haven't seen
got
minutes.
a recording, I didn't know, and I was told there was gonna be a recording of that meeting, and there was gonna be minutes presented so everybody could see what took place at that meeting. And then I had to request these minutes, or this, draft of the interlocal from Logston, and of course he tells me that basically it's a draft and that was for your guys' meeting and not basically for everybody at this point. And it's like, well, that doesn't make sense to me for him being the territory attorney to state that, because it's for all entities to review, and all entities have got to agree on these changes, so it should have been sent out to everybody involved, all.
I think there was agreement with us and
Aaron-
Logston that we just.
Aaron called, Ms. Casabon and Loxton, was supposed to get notes from them. And we had that meeting
Yeah.
the one day, and I haven't seen any of that either.
I'll make a note and try to get a hold of Jeanette.
What I would like to suggest, like, at the last meeting I suggested, that we move forward with the interlocal, or not with the interlocal, but with getting, an ordinance and a resolution filled out, just like we did the alternates for the 5-member, get the 5 members in place, get it approved, and then all of us get together and go through this interlocal like we have talked about since September. And everybody make their notes and sit down, and all entities get together at one time and go over all the changes and changes at one time.
I don't remember Mr. Aaron Cole, making any mention to that when we had our meeting with, Fred. Do you remember Aaron Cole mentioned anything, Fred?
The only thing we discussed was the 5-member board.
Right.
Obviously, there was discussion of that, and then discussion of the Chris stepping away, and, you know, that topic
Yeah.
regarding you, and, you know, that was basically it.
He didn't have a list of 30 items, or
No.
he never even mentioned it, so I don't know. I'm in the dark, I don't know.
Well, I know at the Atlanta Town Council meeting, when he was up there, whenever this meeting was supposed to be, originally being set up, I was wanting to be involved because I was being accused of creating this big mess because of whatever reason, I don't know, and I've never had the opportunity to explain what our findings were in reviewing the budget, or I haven't heard all the reasons why that I created this big fiasco with this territory. But Aaron told me that Jeanette Casabon and Logston and all requested this interlocal about the 30-some items that were not being followed and that was creating the issues with things that we were finding on the territory. And he said that he forwarded a copy with the items highlighted to Casabon and to Logston. Now, I thought that was all. I thought that's what was going to be addressed. And see, I wanted to attend that meeting, and of course, apparently for whatever reason, I wasn't wanted to attend that meeting. But I thought this was going to be addressed, all these items, and that was going to resolve a lot of these issues that's going on with the territory, and that didn't take place. And then, like I say, I got that revised interlocal, and it's like, that's putting the cart before the horse, because everybody needs to discuss this, and we've talked about this, I don't know how many times, about reviewing this interlocal, and all of us coming together, because all this has got to approve it. It's all got to be identical. So, the only thing that I seen in that interlocal that I'm in favor of doing anything right now is going to this 5-member board, because that's what was requested by the township, the provider unit, and I say move forward with the 5-member board and let's get this interlocal.
I think that's most of the changes in that interlocal was related to that 5-member board. Because if you change one thing, there was a couple others.
Yeah, the way I understood it is, we just need to follow the MOU the way it was written. There's a couple of changes that need to be made on the MOU that's gonna change, and one of them being the 5-member board. And in that meeting that we had, the priority was gonna be getting that 5-member board started first as the first priority, and then going back to the MOU and changing those MOUs that had to meet the accommodation of the 5-member board and a few other things. That's my understanding. I mean, it's supposed to have been in writing, but I haven't seen it. I agree with John. I think the first thing is, although it's a password, so to speak, we need to approve the 5-member board and move forward, and then get into the MOU.
I know the minutes, Jeanette took the minutes or notes of that meeting, and she was supposed to forward the notes that she took to Logston and to Aaron Cole. And then the three of them were supposed to come up with an agreement, and then the notes are supposed to come out. I'll get a hold of her and see if she sent that out and if we're waiting on attorneys or what the situation is, because I haven't heard anything from her. I think you're right, though, most of the items were related to the 5-member board. There was one on the safety board that clarified that they only dealt with full-time
Oh,
employees.
that's right, full-time employee.
I think that was the majority of it, though. Okay.
Jay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I'd just like to make a motion that we go ahead and get this ordinance or whatever, like we did in place, get this 5-member board in place and then review this other stuff.
Okay.
I see things in here that he's got highlighted that doesn't pertain to the 5-member board, that, you know, now I'm not saying that they don't need to be addressed. And I'm reading this, the original, there's a lot of things in there that I felt needs to be addressed.
I got a few things highlighted in mine I wanted to, I'm not saying they're wrong, I just want clarification on some of it.
A lot of it needs clarification, some of it I think needs to be addressed and revisited and maybe possibly changed and that type of thing. And this, all this stuff right here, this is Logston's highlighted copy, this is his, this is not mine.
Right.
So, you know, all these highlighted pages in here are things that were changed, apparently, per the meeting you guys had as
Right.
board presidents.
Yeah.
But my opinion is we're gonna go, you know, this
There's-
board and the township board is in agreement to go with the 5-member board.
I'll send Loxton an email tonight, when I get home, and I'll have him prepare an ordinance to move forward and move to a 5-member board, whatever it takes for both entities. And both entities have agreed to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, it'll
And
take us
then
passing it like
you-
being a local.
And you select another representative
I'll wait,
with the Atlanta board, and who you decide to put on that board for the representative territory.
and I'll wait until after everybody's agreed, because if one of the entities say no, or they're not in favor of the 5-member board, then it's out anyway.
Well,
So
I can
we're still
tell you
operating on
officially
free
that
will.
Arcadia Council agrees to it,
We talked
yeah,
about that.
unofficially, and then, we just have to get them signed by both councils.
Okay.
We have the authority to get them signed.
Do we need are you making a motion to do
I'm
something?
making a motion that we have Logston to go ahead and prepare an ordinance for Arcadia and Atlanta and a resolution for the township with the same language on it stating the agreement on the 5-member board as to how the 2 additional members are to be chosen.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, first and second, we approve that. And I will email Loxton, and I'll also call him and give him a message on his voicemail, so.
Okay. Do you have more information, Jason?
You have some about FEMA? Do you
Jason,
have more, or?
Jason,
I have a few items I would like to, I won't take that much time. First thing is a PO. Hand this out, this is for your approval, it's a little over $1,500. This is for PMs and services and pump tests done on engine 56 up in Atlanta. The pump on that engine is good, passed, and is within NFPA recommendations.
I've seen that, that was sent an email out to us before the meeting, I believe.
Yeah, he wanted me to bring that, make sure that you've seen it, and,
Okay.
I don't know if you need to make a motion on it or not, but
John?
I'll make a motion to accept it, since it's over the $1,500 line, I think it's necessary.
I'll second that. If
Yeah,
it needs to be
approved, just
paid.
have the chief take it to a trustee.
Have it paid, thank you.
the other order of business is FEMA. As you're well aware, a couple months back, I submitted for 2 grants. Submitted one for an ambulance, and I submitted one for generators, brand new generators for both stations, and a plume event system, which is the exhaust system for our trucks. Just through being part of that FEMA process, I want to bring it back to the board and let you know that we have passed the first round within the FEMA guidelines, and we're now moving on to the second round. So, which means for us that we're not being eliminated right now, and we have a better chance of getting funded. So that's a good thing for us moving forward. But we may not hear anything up to a year. So the other part of the FEMA thing is I put in a request, as you're aware, a little over a month ago, or right around a month ago, to use unspent funds for the use of hiring this firefighter to replace Darren Steady, and any of those funds, extra funds that go towards Mr. Mast. Mr. Coonfield, who was a military veteran, is funded for a whole nother year. I talked to FEMA today. We've passed the first and second approval for them. She said that she did not see an issue with us not getting the money, but she's waiting for one more blessing, and then she would send out the approval email. So until I get that approval email, I just want you to know that so far we're doing very well moving through that process, and it looks like we're going to get to use the remaining $32,000 of that fund. So FEMA out of the way. As far as we brought to you last month, the hiring of a new individual. To give you a little bit of background, 2 years ago when we did the FEMA grant, we searched for applicants to come to Jackson. We had, I think it was 8 apply, and it cost us about $1,800 to do a process. And that was through IPSP in Indianapolis. That's what most of the career fire departments use. It makes it fair, and there's less liability because it's a third party that does the testing. This time we went in a county-wide process with cities of Fishers, Noblesville, Westfield, and Carmel. And it's only costing us about $1,250, and we've got over 200 applicants to pull from. I was given the list by IPSP. I have it right here. You're more than welcome to take a look at it. It lists the names of the candidates in alphabetical order. It lists them based on their scores. And I tell you that for this, as far as us moving forward and hiring another individual, up until this afternoon, we would have been the first agency in the county to hire off of this list, which meant we had the first pick. However, when this meeting started, I got an email from Westfield, and they've picked up the first 10 on the list, okay? Now in that, I told the chief today, and I'm letting all of you know, I told him that I would go through this list, and I would pick out 2 or 3 people that met our requirements, which was a minimum of a firefighter 1, 2, and a paramedic. I had to go through 35 applicants just to get 5 people that met those requirements. The reason why I went 5 instead of 2 or 3 like I originally told the chief was I was afraid of what just happened earlier, and that is somebody would beat us to the punch. So I have those applicants. If you would like to see their credentials, what I would like to put on your radar is as soon as we get FEMA approval for me to be able to reach out to these individuals and give them a chief's interview and then offer one of them a contingent offer of employment. Now I realize we have to go through the safety board and that will be brought to them. But in this process, FEMA process, we only have until July 1st to get them, or not July, June 1st to get them hired and started. So I'm under a really, really, really tight time frame here. But again, I went down 5 applicants.
On that thing you get from IPSP, does it have, like, because we used to use, the sheriff's department used to use IPSP too as well. Is there a recommended score that they say that above and beyond that those meet all the qualifications and has the knowledge, and usually it's like 90% or 85%.
You know, this actually lists them all the way down to 62%, where when I was chief of Westfield, we always cut it off about the 85 mark. So if we cut it off at the 85 mark, or as far as scoring 85%, we are looking at going down to 72. Now, I would say this, from past practice, I would lower that number, that score number, even lower. And the reason is the last hiring list that the county did that we were not a part of, but the big 4 were, they went through all 200 names. So it's my recommendation that we take this all the way down to 80%. Now I realize that that's a low number, However, I'm hoping that we only have to hire from this list one time, and that's this time.
And the reason I'm saying that because when I was there in the department, I was responsible for that hiring process. And I dealt directly with IPSB to go through it, and I tell you from experience, just because they've got a 97th percentile doesn't mean that it's the ideal person you want.
I agree.
You've got to sit down and start interviewing and figure out, my God. Thank you for your time.
We just, Nobles of Fire just hired towards the bottom of the previous list. We've got some guys going through Recruit Academy right now, and they seem to be fine guys. They're going through, and what I've noticed on a lot of these lists, the separation between number 1 and number 10 is tenths of a point.
It is.
It's not a point or 4 points or 5 points. We're talking 2/10 of a point.
0.01.
Yeah, this guy's one through 5 may be all have the same score, you know, but they have to rank them somewhere. So, you know, if you go down 30 or 40 or 50 on the list, you're not necessarily getting a bad candidate, you know, and people can have a bad day and not get a really good score on something. So,
Well, we are unique at Jackson. However, we are at somewhat of a disadvantage. We're unique in the sense that in order to be on the people that we're hiring right now, you have to be a paramedic and you have to be a firefighter 1-2 already. Part of that is, and I can, without boring you with huge details, I can tell you going back to 2010, when I was deputy chief, myself and the chief at the time met with the state EMS commission. And we sat in there with this 7-member board, and we told them that we did a hiring process, and we specifically targeted paramedics. If you were a paramedic in the state of Indiana, and you tested, you got additional points for Westfield Fire Department. That way it would move you to the top of the list, and we'd have a better chance of hiring you. At that time, we had 260 people go through our process. We didn't have a single paramedic in the first 60 applicants. And by our merit rules, I couldn't go down to 61 and hire you. It just didn't work that way. So here, you have to be a firefighter 1-2 and a paramedic already. One of the other disadvantages is because they already have to have that, they don't get a chance to go through recruit school. So we can't really mold them and change the culture of what some of the things that we're used to up here in order to help us get to the next level. One of our advantages is, because they're not spending 6 months in a recruit class, I've got them on station faster, and because under the Indiana state law, I've got 1 year to get rid of you. Period. He comes in late, she comes in late, she's not dressing right, he's not dressing right.
Probationary period.
Yeah, that probationary period, I can get rid of you for any reason, period.
so we get to test them out longer.
Test them out a little bit longer. So that part's the advantage. This list goes all the way down to scores of 62%. I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just asking, as of right now, that we stay above the 80 percentile, and if it gets to a point to where we have to go lower than that, then I will come back to the board and ask for your approval. Again, I know it's got to go before the safety board before we do anything. I just want to put this on your radar moving forward.
You mentioned that you were going to wait on FEMA's blessing before you could do an interview. Now, why are you waiting on them to give you the blessing to go ahead before you do an interview with, or pick one of these guys off air?
Well, the reason, a couple reasons. One, I want to use their money. I mean, I don't think that my opinion, I don't think the world's going to end tomorrow for our budget that's not being able to hire somebody. But I would much rather let FEMA know, as I've done, to state that this all hinges on you. And in order for us to meet our requirements under FEMA based on the original grant, I need your money. If I go and hire them right now, it makes it look like I don't need your money.
Okay, that's what I was wanting to get at, because I know our agreement with them is that we fill that position for 1 year, and they, so we got to fill that position, we got to pay that full salary back for the full 3 years.
Right.
So, I understand what you're saying, that, you know, you don't want, it doesn't, so it doesn't look like we've got money burned. We do need the money, and we do. But I just don't, you know, like I said, we got till June the 1st to fill this position, and I wanna make sure that takes place. And, you know, I don't wanna run into.
I believe it will. Again, we're under a tight time frame. One, and really the two advantages that I have is I already know that they're a firefighter. 1, 2, I already know they're a paramedic. Number 2, I don't have to put them through they'll go through a per physical, like if they were on Fisher's career, you know, whatever. But I don't have to wait like they would have to wait in order to start them.
Now, is there any way that you could go ahead and get the picks and get approval for interviews and go ahead and interview them contingent on that FEMA, so that you have that part out of the way? And if FEMA says yes, you can go ahead and move forward right there and to speed it up?
Yes.
Any possibility of doing that?
Yes, it's just a matter of scheduling a meeting now with the safety board.
And getting the pick.
That's the chief and the safety board.
Yeah. I just wanted to put this on your radar, that this is where we're at. These are some of the issues, and we're moving forward.
As long as we meet that 1 June deadline, we're okay.
Yeah.
We should be here pretty quick.
Yes.
All right.
So,
Anything else?
Do we need to make a motion or anything with that? I think, I'm fine with agreeing with it, I don't think there's any,
Yeah,
we're all in agreement still.
I'm.
You do what
and
you stated.
You're just following procedure, because
Yeah.
they report to the chief, you guys sit down and talk to the safety board on the line jobs.
the only other thing that I would add is recently the firemen have finished 2 state classes. One's a driver operator, which is for pumping apparatus or engines, and the other one's for tanker. It's a newer certification through the state. It's been out roughly a year or so. They've passed it. They got their certifications. What that means for us, hopefully it'll help lower our insurance rates a little bit, possibly. We can also use that towards when we do our ISO rating. That'll give us additional points, and hopefully that'll play in our favor if there's ever.
And that's on still on our to-do list, the ISO.
Yes.
High priority.
And hopefully if there's ever legal action, the training will be in our favor. So.
Is there any timeline on getting an ISO, an update on the rating? I know Chief, you and Chief have been working on that. I mean, have you have anything scheduled with them, or a timeline, or?
You know, I don't.
I don't know if
I know
there's
the
something you
chief
have to
has
do.
talked to them a couple different times, and for whatever reason, we, have moved things around. One of the last times he held off was because of this radio deal, because that plays a big part in the rating. And then now the other part of that is we don't know what the county's going to do with this CAD system, because originally they were going to go to this Interact, and
Which is bankrupt.
yeah, and now the company's bankrupt, and everybody in the state that was going through it, like Kokomo and Indianapolis, they're out in left field now. So we don't even know what the county's going to do. So we're kind of in a hold pattern there. Yeah, it's a mess.
I heard that Marion County paid them several $1 million and they hadn't completed the work.
Yeah.
Several $1 million.
I would add, one other thing I would ask, do you guys have any questions for the fire department?
Anything from the audience?
Versus. I had a couple of things I just wanted to bring up. One thing Chris mentioned to me was, if we do this training container thing, if we do move along, it's something she wanted to throw on your radar is the insuring of it. How we plan on insuring, do we need to insure it? Will it fall under the current insurance we have? Do we need to get a special insurance policy? And if we do move it, if it's built out at the water plant, since that's not territory property, how would that be insured? She's thinking of liability, because it's a training thing. A firefighter gets hurt, so she didn't want to answer necessarily, but she wanted to throw that out, put it on your radar, so when you're thinking of putting this together, it's something you need to kind of think of too.
Well, real quick on that, I did the same thing when I was chief of Harrison, and we did it when I was deputy chief for Westfield when we started the training facility. At the time, there was no additional cost for insurance. However, anytime a firefighter goes to that burn chamber, they would have to sign a waiver of liability. Now, you can do it every time, or you can do a blanket one for a year.
Yeah, that's what the county does.
Yeah, so I don't know that there would be any changes to that, that's something to look into. But from my understanding, by them signing that waiver, we would be fine.
I just say, it might be something we wanna look into for liability. I don't wanna see the town of Atlantic get stuck. You know, especially if we put it out near the water plant.
You have the chief to check with that, but the insurance company would be the one that would answer that question, whoever the carrier is for liability, and explain exactly what the intentions are with that training box and, you know, whatnot, and let me say, if we're gonna go with a waiver, which I think we should, and explain that to them and see if that would.
Probably cost a copy of us getting a waiver.
Anybody else?
I got a couple other things. Did Mark Amaranth get a hold of you about funding for the county training facility? He called Chris and said that the county council had buy-in and financial support from each one of the cities, and he was wanting to know if the townships and the other fire departments.
He was in our meeting last night, and all we talked about was the drainage, the path, the walkway from like a long trail from Noblesville all the way up here, grant money, upfront money for demolition. The county's already paid 50%, I think, of the cost for the study that we need to have before the drain problem is taken care of. Either 15,000 or 3,000 or something like that. But there was no discussion at all on the train facility.
I did read that in the paper that the county council thinks that all the fire departments need to help support this facility financially. And Mark had called Chris and she referred him to you and said, I don't need to talk about this, you need to call Maurice. So I don't know if the county's wanting money is what it is. The cities are giving $40,000 per year per city. And I don't think he's wanting that much from us, but I think they're gonna probably set a token amount showing that, you know, as little as we use it, we help fund it. And if he does, we need to know that for our budget.
It's in jeopardy.
Yeah, but we need to know that when Jason's doing the budget stuff. Last thing I've got is, we talked in the previous meeting about the EMS fund and splitting it from the township, so it's for the territory.
Right.
Chief White was supposed to research that with Clay Fire. I don't know if you had anything on that. You have to talk to Chief White.
I had a discussion, Mr. Chair, I had a discussion with Watson on that about 3 weeks ago, and he said the statute pretty well dictates that it stays with the township. If you have a provider unit for a territory, then it stays with the township.
I'm wondering if there's any way we could create a second fund and have one that is strictly for the fire territory. You know what I mean? So it's, now, yeah, it'd still be under it's always going to be under the township because it's a provider unit, but it would be actually earmarked for the territory. And because we talked about this, discussed this in the last township board meeting, and we were in favor of that too. The township board would be in favor of creating an additional fund, one that says territory EMS fund or
Where would
whatever.
that money come from?
That'd be the question.
What's that?
Where would that money come from?
Well, when we get a transport, that money automatically will go in. That's what I'm saying.
EMS fund is.
Yeah,
The question now
because
would be.
we can't get rid of the EMS fund we got now, but then could we create another one that says territory EMS fund? So all the transports we get or contract money, if we ever get any again, would go into that. That way it's more separated. That would, you know, if we can't, you know, do anything else, at least it would separate.
Now, would that be an attorney question or be a financial advisor question?
Well, I think we're waiting for direction from Chief White, because he was gonna talk to Clay Fire Territory and see how they did it, and if they did, then we'll, obviously, if they did it, then we'll tell the financial advisor how do we do this, and he may just say put another line item in there, because it's non-taxable money, it's money we brought in, collected,
That assists us,
you know.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get clarification on that, but I think that might be a possibility.
Jeff, as a township, I know that currently that EMS money, if I understand this correctly, is going to the township.
Yeah.
That's correct.
as a line item. You as a township board, can you then in turn, expend that as you wish? I mean, can you?
Well, legally we could, but we don't have anything to expend it on because the way we have it set up, it's stipulated it has to be used for EMS.
Okay,
Well, the township itself doesn't have a fire department anymore, so we can't spend it on EMS. You know, what I'm saying is it'd be better if we had a separate fund that said territory EMS fund, and all that money gets funneled in there when they bring in revenue, then, you know, you see what I mean? The state is very particular on, and we can
Because
fudge a little bit on what we spend that on, but we couldn't take it and spend it on cemeteries or poor relief.
You know, here I hear you talk about running out of money. You just got enough to make one more payroll,
Yeah.
and yet you cannot take that EMS money
Well, we
and
can,
spend it.
Borrow.
that's where we were talking about doing the borrowing. That we borrow money from that EMS fund to pay part of payroll, and it's kind of complicated, but that's where the money's at, that we would borrow to make payroll.
It would take a township approval to move part of the
Yeah,
EMS
and
fund
that's
into the
what,
salary ordinance.
and that's what I'm thinking, if we separated it and created a fund specifically for the territory, then we might not have to do that in the future.
Exactly.
That's what I'm trying to get away from.
Can the township just not give the territory that money because in the budget order, the EMS money per Chris is included in fire territory miscellaneous income? Brownsburg is they have their fire territory is their EMS fund is in their fire territory fund.
Yeah,
So
and
if she's
that's what we're
included that
trying to
already
do.
in the miscellaneous revenue and that's been approved by DLGF, why can't that just be transferred into the territory?
I think it's the way we would do it and how we would set that line up. That's the question is, we want to do it, but I mean, you gotta go know the rules with the DLGF. You screw up one thing and
Yeah, it goes from DLGF to EMS and then creating another,
Yeah.
rename an account to move the EMS money out of the township fund. With the territory, call that revenue, whatever the case may be, and use that money for.
See, part of that
That's what
revenue
it's
that's in that
expensive.
fund was township money before the territory was
Sure.
started.
We understand.
And
right,
that's
well,
where
like
we
the-
wanna separate those
Right.
two and say, okay, the township had this amount of money when the
Exactly.
territory started, and we're gonna keep
Exactly.
that fund, and we're gonna
Right.
keep the name
Exactly.
of it. And then we're gonna create another fund and transfer the balance
Understand
into
that.
that other, and then any new revenue would go in there, so the township EMS fund would stay, the dollar amount would stay the same for forever, unless,
Right.
until they decide to do something with that money.
Expend it.
Yes,
Some way.
well, they probably have to have resolutions
It
to
would just be a dormant
transfer.
fund and it would go into the township's
Right.
general fund.
Right, and that's where we're trying to get clarification from it, and a bunch of bean counters sitting there scratching their head going, well, I never run into this before.
Without, making everybody gasp for air, if you look at Cicero and Sheridan and the way we did it when I was up north, is that EMS money went back to the volunteer non-for-profit 501c3 corporation, and we bought and paid for things out of that EMS fund.
Yes, it's all the way it was set up initially. Cicero's is that way.
I think Sheridan.
Sheridan's might be that way too. I'd like to see us get that separated so we can use that EMS fund for what it was intended to use. And that's, Jason and I talked about, pay for EMS equipment.
It's already included in your
Yeah.
approved budget.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
DLGF
It's already in
recognizes
there.
as territory funds, is the way DLGF
Right.
did. So it, the DLGF is recognizing it as our funds, not township expenditure funds.
Right.
And, in the interlocal, it says all revenue, the provider unit is to put all revenue brought in into the territory budget. So that's revenue brought in by the territory.
We should have created a special fund when we created the territory, then we wouldn't be talking about this. But the idea, when we had a township department before the territory, we used that fund to buy all our EMS supplies. We had enough of it to pay for part of an ambulance.
I'm sure.
And then we use it to pay for some of our part-time employees too. That's what we use that fund for. That's one of those funds where the state has kind of got their ears and their eyes over it. They're like, we know it's there, but we don't really want to know it's there, But yeah, so we're working on that, and I think Chief White's trying to find how other fire departments have done it, because they merged Clay's got, is there 3 townships? Started out with Clay Township, and then they created 2 other townships joined, and that's the Clay Fire Territory up near South Bend. So there were townships that merged together to create a fire department. So how did they move their funds when they did that? That's what we're trying to find out.
Do we have our next meeting dates?
May 6th. Yeah, May 6th at 5 o'clock here.
Yeah, 5 o'clock here is fine, yeah. And then, paper deals, you guys do everything.
Take care of the advertising.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else on the board or the folks out here? If not, I consider this meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.